Hello and welcome to a very special episode of First Geek 411. I'm your host, Cameron Franklin, and with me, as always, from the Great White North is Shanine. How are you doing?
Doing good. You couldn't keep me away forever.
Yeah. Taking a break until T Swift pulls her right back in. And so we are this week taking a break from the normal news and all of that kind of stuff. And that is because Taylor Swift has released 1989, Taylor's version. And so we're going to be chatting about that tonight, adding it to our official rankings, as well as, since we're only doing one album this time, taking a bit more time to actually talk through the songs. But first, you can go and find our video to our official T Swift ranking of all 13 of her previous albums, including Taylor's versions, right here. And it's going to be in the corner somewhere. I don't actually remember which way it goes, but I'm going to wave my hand so I can find this later. I'm doing this at the beginning of the video so I don't have to scrub through and find it. And it always takes me so long. Second of all, before we get into it, we're going to do our normal rigmarole as well as catch up on what we have been up to. And so with that, as always, you can find us as OneGeek411 on social media, as well as catch us in our Discord server. You can also send us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. You can watch live on Twitch Monday nights at 6:45 Mountain Time and catch the videos over on our YouTube. And then you can go and check out our Redbubble store. So with that, Shanine, what all have you been up to?
As we were mentioning before, I haven't been here in weeks, but I feel like I have not a lot to catch up on. But there is some fun stuff. Celebrating spooky season, I finished both the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th franchises. So those were things that I watched.
There is indeed film there.
Uh-huh.
I feel like that's been your general vibe as you've gone through these.
Yeah, they absolutely did not dethrone Halloween as being my favorite, like, classic horror franchise. Not even close. With the Halloween franchise, there's like at least a few that I would like actively rewatch, and like several more that I would not be like mad about watching. Whereas with these franchises, I'm probably not gonna ever watch them again, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
kind of how it goes sometimes.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, I might watch Wes Craven's New Nightmare again. That one was like actually pretty good. Because I think it had like the least amount of cheesy Freddy in it. And that's what was really bringing the franchise down for me.
Oh.
But then the last one, like the newest Nightmare on Elm Street, was horrifying in like the worst way. They're like, what if we went from like the furthest cheesy thing to like the most real life horror that you can imagine, and was super disturbing. And I'm like, no, I don't like that actually. It was not a good time. It made me very uncomfortable the whole time. And not in like a, I'm enjoying this horror movie, ooh, so creepy. Just like viscerally, physically uncomfortable watching it. So
that's very unfortunate.
Yep, didn't like that. Friday the 13th was pretty much the same thing the whole way through, where Jason killed a lot of people, and that was what happened.
And that is the event that occurred.
That's it, and that's all. In the final Friday the 13th movie, it had Jared Padalecki in it, though, so that at least was enjoyable. Love me some Sammy. But yeah, now I just have to watch Scream. So
it feels like there's not as many of those. I don't know if that's accurate because I don't watch them, but I feel like I hear about the other ones more. like new movies coming out more for those.
Yeah,
But I could
I
also
don't
just be
think that's
conflating
accurate.
everything.
I I think yeah, there are at least several.
There are at least more than we would like.
I finished reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and it was amazing.
Nice.
It's her first standalone that I've read, and man, it was so good. I cry in movies and TV a lot, but it takes a lot for a book to make me cry, and I was like a mess at the end of this book. Like it wrecked me, and I loved it. Um,
What's that one about? I
good.
think that was one that our library did have, but that was not one that I had grabbed yet.
Yeah. Um, Basically, Addie LaRue makes a deal with the devil. Um, he's the darkness. But basically, she makes a deal. She wants freedom, basically, and uh, the darkness being the darkness twists it into her not having ties to anything. And anytime that she is like out of a person's sight, they immediately forget who she is. Um, so yeah, it's her living life. And I don't know, looking for love, looking for belonging and joy and hope, and it is so good.
Nice. Um, quick V.E. Schwab story. Last week I went to dinner with some people. I need to kill some time beforehand, so I went to Barnes and Noble. And I was mostly walking around the board game section. But I like looked over and I saw V.E. Schwab's name, and I was like, oh, did she write another book? Then I realized it was the Spanish section, and that was why I didn't recognize the title, because it'd be way too easy if I like retained any Spanish that I learned in school, which would objectively make my life much better if I was bilingual. But instead, I barely speak English, and so yeah, so there we are. I confused myself because I ended up in a different section of Barnes and Noble.
Love it. To be fair, she has written a lot,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
And speaking of writing, my writing group had a bring your own cabin virtual writing retreat this weekend, which was so super fun. We all sent each other care packages and spent the whole day writing and doing writing games, and it was great. It was very good to get into the whip and um, finish reading my first draft and realizing all of the very deep seated problems that it has.
Hey, I mean, that's part of writing, part of editing, right? You gotta, you did the most important step, and that's you got words on the page. And so, um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I still can't imagine putting that much into a story as you've already done, let alone what you'll continue to do with it. So keep me posted. And if you need someone who's not a great editor, I can indeed read. And so that is a service I can offer.
I'll let you know. I've got you on the short list for beta reading once we're at that point.
Speaking of reading, and speaking of V.E. Schwab, this was not the past week for me, but it has been since you and I talked. And in that time, I have finished the audiobooks for A Gathering of Shadow and A Conjuring of Light. And I have the Fragile Threads of Power checked out from the library. I just have not started it yet. And so I went really deep on those audiobooks for those and knocked them both out in like a week and a half or something like that. And so at some point, maybe for Fragile Threads of Power, I want us to do a spoiler cast kind of for that series. And then while I was walking around Barnes & Noble, I eventually did find the English section, and they had a collection of the Shades of Magic graphic novels, which I really want to get now that we have like spent time with the king, because he's only kind of tangentially there in A Darker Shade of Magic, but he's a much bigger part of A Gathering of Shadows and A Conjuring of Light, and that made me way more interested in reading these graphic novels. So that might be something that at some point we need to do a return and spoiler cast book club type thing for that series as a whole.
Love it.
And did I have anything else I wanted to add? Yeah. And then, so yeah, Fragile Threads, I have it checked out. It's the actual book. So we're going to see how far I get, because they're also like actually enforcing the return policy right now. Like someone has it on hold after me. So we'll see how far I actually get. I'm a very slow reader. And so I'm mostly just proud of myself for knocking out a couple books. And so yeah, so that's one of the big things I've been up to this past weekend. Deanna and I, as well as another one of my friends from high school, went down to Austin for a friend's wedding. Had a ton of fun. Very big congratulations to them. Don't want to say names just because this isn't something that where they are, but people that follow us on social media know who they are, or know names, I guess. But big congratulations. We had a lot of fun. Great wedding. Lots of good food. We danced a lot. They, to go with the theme of the night, they played Shake It Off. The band was like super good. And after like every song it would end, I would yell, "Play Taylor Swift." And so eventually they played Shake It Off and we partied. Did I scream sing all of Shake It Off? Yes, I did. No. Yes. And so that was great. Video game wise, I have been playing Marvel Spider-Man 2. Loving it. I'm about 70% of the way through the story is what the system says. Still got a bunch of side quests to knock out. I'm going to just, no spoilers, but I'm going to just say Miles Morales' side quests are A+. Like there are specific ones that are segmented for each character, and the Miles ones are super good. Definitely recommend. For people that have seen the actual like content that they were putting out pre-release for the game, I just completed the part that they demoed. And so as part of their like gameplay announcement. So for people that know what that means, they know what that means. I know some people that are like very much on blackout, so I don't want to go into too much detail, even for something like that. And then Emma and I discussed it last week, but I have been continuing watching Our Flag Means Death. We're now caught up on everything that is released, and just waiting for the rest of the episodes to drop. And then I'm curious, based on what I know of you in the past, have you started watching Loki?
No.
Okay.
I'm very behind on Disney Plus shows in general right now, but like there's like I'm split like right down the center. Like half of me really wants to watch Loki and the other half is like, but the first season was so bad.
Yeah. I know that landed a lot lower for you than it did for me, where like I would pretty confidently say Loki is like my number 2 Disney Plus show. Yeah, I know we radically disagree on that, but so like I've been really excited. The 4th episode is out, and so as of recording, and so we've been watching those every week as they come out. And I'm going to say episode 4 was a doozy. So if you know, you know. But yeah, so I've been really enjoying season 2 there. I'm very curious if you get to it. I'm very curious to hear what you think, because reviews wise, my bad, clicked the wrong thing. Took down the video from the stream for the second. Review wise, it seems to be a very polarizing season for people, and so I'm just very curious because I guess like reviewers got access to the first 4 episodes, so again, if you get a chance to watch it, I'm super curious to what you think and what's going to kind of be your vibe, again, as someone who loves Loki but was very down on the first season.
Yeah.
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 With that, let's go ahead and jump into our topic of the week. And that is, of course, as I said at the top of the show, the release of 1989, Taylor's version, and us returning to our rankings for this of Taylor's albums. I don't know why I just completely blanked. And so before we get into it, I do want to cover again kind of the rough way that we discussed doing our breakdowns, just so we're on the same page. There's more details about this in our other video where we went through all of her albums and talked through, but we rated every song that is on the album on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being masterpiece, 9 classic, 8 very good, 7 good, 6 enjoyable, 8 fine or average, 4 mediocre, 3 bad, 2 awful, 1 horrible. And then we took those rankings, averaged them together, and then averaged our totals together. And then that is how we got our overall average as a podcast. For this, it didn't matter because this is a Taylor's version. All of the tracks are included. But for the initial albums, we did not include bonus tracks. We only did what was on the actual initial release. So that will affect some of how the rankings actually play out, because I'm using this album as the example. Wonderland, You Are in Love, and New Romantics were bonus tracks previously, but this time are included. This can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how people feel about those bonus tracks. And then, as always with any ranking, I do want to call out that these are just our opinions. You may or may not disagree. Shanine and I will talk about it some, because as with the other one, there are some songs that we very much disagreed on. And so I'm very excited. And this is something that we didn't really get the chance to do in our previous ranking, because there was so much to cover and we still went really long. But in this one, we can actually dig into some of those individual sections. So for this, we're going to go through, there's 25 songs, 24 songs, something like that. 21. Regardless, there's 20 something songs. And we're going to go through the first 13 and then do the last ones after that, because that's how the picture I had it laid out. So that's what we're doing. That is a convenient split at the initial album and then all the bonus tracks / from the vaults. So it did actually work out kind of clean there. So pun definitely not intended. And so before we get into or before I go and review our rankings from last time, I want to hear from you, Shanine. High level, what stood out from you or for you from 1989 Taylor's version?
Man, I don't know. I feel like I would have enjoyed this more if it had been released during the summer or at like the end of the summer, coming right in the midst of my spooky season. It's like, this is not my 1989 era. I'm so confused.
Yeah, this is folklore era right now. We are in peak folklore.
Yeah.
And it's like waxing red. Peak folklore. It's almost Evermore time. Like what are we
Yeah.
doing with this 1989 stuff?
So I don't know if that like affected scores at all. I was just like thrown off by that. I think, I mean, 1989 is definitely up there for me, is one of my top albums. I was mixed on the vault tracks. We'll say that.
Yeah. I'll say, again, kind of with you there. I think that compared to Speak Now Taylor's version, which, as I said when we did our ranking, I think has probably my second favorite song of hers, in Electric Touch. I did not really connect with these vault tracks as much as other ones. There are some that I really enjoyed, and but there were definitely there's no Electric Touch here for me. There was none that I was like, this is the song that like defines like this album for me, in terms of the new stuff there. I will say I connected with some of the bonus tracks in a way I had not the previous time we went through them. They weren't included in our ranking the previous time, so it didn't really matter, but I really connected with those bonus tracks. And then something I want to call out as we went through was one of the things that we had discussed for the Taylor's versions was that some of the albums, Fearless was an example, kind of just like took an album and felt like they just added more songs, in our opinion. Where there were ones like Speak Now and Red that really felt like they elevated what was already there. How did you feel about 1989 Taylor's version from that, like on that spectrum? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I'd say it was more just adding more songs for me personally. There wasn't like you said, there wasn't like a standout vault track for me. And yeah, I don't think any of the new ones are like new go-tos or anything for me either.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. When I was listening to this, especially like the first time, I connected with this a lot as the Lion King live action. Where like I really like this album, but I feel like that's because 1989 is my favorite album. And like just like returning to those 13 songs is so impactful for me. And kind of just having a chance to come back and do that again was awesome. And it kind of just like the core of this album is just so good, that like it was great coming back to it. Something I forgot to do this last time. I'm going to do it again. What are the Taylor's versions? So the Taylor's versions are Taylor returning to one of her previous albums, re-recording the songs so that she has ownership over the masters of that music because somebody else owns the masters for her initial songs, for her initial album up through Reputation. Yeah, right. Because Lover is the first one that she owns fully. And so she's going back through recording all of those initial albums, so that she owns the masters for them. And in doing so is adding additional songs to them, and kind of pulling them more into the present, for lack of a better way of saying that. And so she's updating some lyrics, kind of going through and changing some of the performance of them and things like that. I also wanted to say, I don't know what you did for this, but I also wanted to say I did not reference my previous ranking when I went through this one. Like I hid those scores so I would not see them. So the how am I feeling one versus the other is definitely kind of interesting. Of like there are some that like got the exact same score without me looking, which at least I'm consistent there, and there are some that are radically different. So
I did the exact opposite. because I knew I was a very different person from when we first ranked these albums. And I was like, I don't want to just be hating on 1989 because I am not in a 1989 mood right now. And seriously, if I had not looked at my rankings, I'm pretty sure all the songs would have been at least a full point lower.
Oh, wow.
So,
Interesting. Before we actually talk through this album and kind of go through the tracks, I do want to kind of run through our ranking as of the previous ranking video, and then we're going to call out where 1989 Taylor's version lands on that ranking, and then we're going to start chatting through. I was considering having us holding the actual ranking till the end, but I don't want us to like dance around not talking about it. And so, and then for everybody, we of course have actual numbers attributed to these rankings. For the sake of reading through the list, I'm not going to read off all of the numbers. So I'm going to call out like every couple, but I'm not going to hit every single one. So our lowest ranked album was Debut with a 6.53, followed by Fearless Taylor's Version, which was the only TV to rank lower than its original album on our rankings. And number 3 is Evermore, followed by Reputation, which we both gave an exact 7. Then regular Fearless, regular Speak Now, followed by Lover, which was a 7.56, which was the first one above the average. If you took our initial rankings and averaged them together, that was what we ended up with. Then there was Folklore, Speak Now, Taylor's Version, Red at an 8.03, Red TV, Midnights, and then our number 1 album was 1989, coming in with an 8.36. And so 1989 Taylor's Version lands at number 2 with an 8.30. So just behind 1989. And so as with previous 1989, I definitely am higher on it numerically. My average for it was an 8.42, whereas your average was an 8.1. And so we definitely have some variation there. So and then we'll talk through individual songs. And so once we get going. So I was going to say something else, but let's jump into it. The first 13 songs on this album, let's kind of take it in, let's say like groups of, we'll take it in half. So like do 1 through 7 and kind of talk about those 7 collectively. Then we'll finish out the list. So kicking off the album, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just so I actually have it there. Yes. Okay. So number 1, Welcome to New York. These are all, of course, Taylor's versions. Blank Space, Style, Out of the Woods, All You Had to Do Was Stay, Shake It Off, and I Wish You Would. Going through these, kind of general thoughts, of course. There's not necessarily, I would say, anything radically different here. But I am curious to kind of what are your thoughts on this the beginning of this album?
So I think generally speaking, for the whole album, for all of the re-recordings of songs that we already had, there was nothing significant that like changed my mind about any of the songs. Feel like in Blank Space, she says a lot of ex-lovers, a lot more enunciated.
See,
a long list of ex-lovers.
I disagree. Cool. I think it sounds even more Starbucks lovers. Now, is that because that's my favorite Taylor Swift meme and I just want to keep it alive? Yes, that's literally how psychologically it is working. But uh, again, we're just getting into us disagreeing on this album.
I feel like when it's in the background, like, and I'm not really paying attention, I hear like Starbucks Lovers, but when I'm like listening to it, I feel like she just enunciates it a lot more. I don't know.
I need to go through and actually like look at it with the lyrics and just like get it in my brain.
And I don't know, I was also listening to the album on the way home today, and I feel like Blank Space is a lot more like percussion forward than the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me on this, it's interesting that you say that. So I think Blank Space is the one of the few songs that I feel like I don't like the Taylor's version as much as the original. I need to listen to them side by side to like really have that as like a stance to stand by. But that one as one of like my favorite songs on the previous album kind of just didn't hit as hard. And I don't really know why that is. Of course, these rankings are like us in the moment. They're not necessarily where we will always be when it comes to these songs, but like Blank Space didn't connect with me. But Style, the song that I literally can't remember the lyrics for, that one hit me a lot more this time. Is it because of the meme of me not understanding it? Maybe. But I really like this version of Style more. I'm not sure how like actually different it is. But I don't know. I liked that one more. So it was interesting for me that those basically flopped on my rankings. Other than that, I mean, I referenced it at the beginning. Shake It Off, that was played at the wedding, is one of my top Taylor Swift songs. And so I, of course, had to give it a 10 here as well. And other than that, not really a ton else to say about this section. And so if you're ready, we can go ahead and jump into the next batch. So for this, we have Bad Blood, Wildest Dreams, How You Get the Girl, This Love, I Know Places, and Clean. What are your thoughts on the tail end of the OG?
As with the original, the tail end is like really up and down for me, with some of my favorites and then some of my like least favorite Taylor Swift songs in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, still love Wildest Dreams, still love Clean.
For this section, something that I think is interesting is both of us have This Love as our lowest ranked song on the whole album. But your lowest is a 5. My lowest is a 7.5. And so this is why my average is so much higher than yours. Like, it's just funny there because like we'd agree, but we just like radically disagree on the spectrum, with me placing it a quarter of the ranking higher than you placed it. So for me, I love this like this portion of the album, with the exception of This Love, which again I'm higher on than you. Like this is probably like one of my favorite runs in any of Taylor's albums, even going back to the previous one. But like Shake It Off all the way through Clean, minus This Love, are just like so good. And I really like that whole chunk. I will say I did right one of my wrongs in my previous previous ranking, where I gave Bad Blood a 9.5 out of 10. It should have been a 10. I passed Cameron, messed up. And so I did right the wrong on this one and gave it the 10. And then other than that, yeah, kind of to your point, there's not like, this is a great portion of the album. I really like this, and yeah, lots of great songs here. I mean, I know we have, like, you have some tens here, but top songs from this portion of the album. Like, what are your top picks? If you're putting one song on, what are you listening to?
Oh, Wildest Dreams, hands down. Always.
Always.
It's the first song to play on my whip playlist.
Nice. Nice. And for me, it is, again, no surprise based on things I've already said. It is Shake It Off. Like, that is one of my, like, that. I love Goofy Taylor and Hardcore Revenge Taylor. Those are my two favorite versions. And Shake It Off for me is definitely hardcore Goofy Taylor to the max, and I love that, and it's one of my go-to songs because of that. Okay. You ready for the back end?
Oh yeah.
Let's do this. Okay, so there were the other. Okay, that's what it was. There were the other songs, I think, are the special versions that are not on the main album. That's why there's 25 on the picture, but we did not do 25. I was confused to why the numbers weren't lining up. So on this, let's chat the final or the bonus tracks. Then let's do From the Vaults. So we have Wonderland, You Are in Love, and New Romantics getting brought into the main album. What do you think of these songs?
So glad that they're finally on the main album and not just bonus tracks, because Wonderland and New Romantics have been like two of my favorite 1989 songs forever. And they're just so good. They're just some of the first songs to come to mind when I think of 1989. So they deserve to be more than just a bonus track.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I physically owned 1989, and so like, or I think I had it digitally, but like I owned the album, and so I had the 13 songs on the original album. I did not have any of these songs. And so like, while I'm pretty confident I had heard them prior to our listen through, I was not overly familiar with them. And, yeah. And so like, that was definitely it was interesting for me last time, kind of discovering these songs realistically for the first time, and more than just like a passing listen. And I gotta say, I don't know how past Cameron was ranking these, but like, I feel like Wonderland is probably one of the most me songs. Like, and I gave it an 8.5 on the previously. And again, that didn't factor in, but that's what I gave it, versus this time. Like, it's a solid 10 for me. Like, I don't really know what I was doing. And even like New Romantics, I gave a 7 previously, and now I gave it a 9. Like, I don't really know if I'm just in a different moment now, and or it was like the, like, air quotes, pressure of trying to get through every song that was just like, hey, I don't have time to dwell on these. Whereas for this album, as well as when we did Speak Now, Taylor's version, those were the ones that we were able to like listen to more, and kind of dwell on those songs. And so these ones kind of grew on me, but I love Wonderland, and I'm not really sure like how I missed it before. But it's such a good song.
Oh, good.
And You Are in Love, I think for both of us is just fine. Is kind of where we landed with it. Kind of to no surprise, you landed at a 6. I landed at a 6.5. So summarizing my view of this album, I ranked it higher than you, which is kind of just how like my ratings are a bit inflated for yours. So, and so I just think that that's always interesting to see that. And It is always interesting to see. I feel like I wanted to do the math on this, but I didn't have time with the wedding this weekend. And it would have been hard to bring these in. I feel like, while, spoiler alert, we've given the exact same number of 10s, I feel like my like averages are higher than yours. Like, I feel like you are much more likely to give, like, looking at these, like 9.5s or 6s. Whereas I feel like I am much more likely to land in that middle range. I don't know if that's factual. Like I said, I wanted to actually do that math. So I did it a little bit on the previous one. But I wanted to actually break down how that works. And so, not including 1989 in the math, I did do a brief run through last time, and both of our modes, so the most often picked number was 7. Your average was, or your median was an 8, whereas my median was a 7.5. And then your average was a 7.68, whereas my average was a 7.39. And so I'm just very curious, like, if I land, kind of going to the idea of the rankings, I feel like I land much more often on the good, very good, whereas you will land a lot more often on the classic masterpiece or enjoyable average fine. Like, and again, I don't have the actual math to back that up, but I do think it's interesting because I do feel like, at least for me, basically all the 9.5s are 10s that we just didn't want to pull the trigger on giving a 10. and so like, and so I think that that's always super interesting how that shakes out. But let's go ahead and jump to our from the vault tracks. We have Slut, Don't Say Go, Now That We Don't Talk, Suburban Legends, and Is It Over Now? So what did you think of these from the vaults?
It was good to have more Taylor Swift songs. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad about them. They were overall enjoyable, but not a super huge standout. Not any new favorite vault tracks for me. They were okay.
Yeah. Kind of similar for me. I feel like Don't Say Go at a different point in my life probably would have been one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs. I'm not at that point now, but at a different point in my life, and maybe that was actually like when 1989 came out. Like, I feel like that song might have hit me a lot differently. But I'm not at that point in my life anymore. And so I only gave it a 7.5, which feels really weird to say, of like, this could have been one of my favorites. I really enjoyed, Now That We Don't Talk, Suburban Legends, and Is It Over? Is It Over Now? Kind of to your point, I don't necessarily think any of them are like breaking into my top songs, but I did really enjoy those three. And I think it's a fun way to like close out the album. But yeah, my first time listening through it, I was just kind of like, yeah, these are good. And then kind of went back through and I wanted to actually go through and like look at the lyrics. And so I spent some time doing that. And yeah, and that's why I think Suburban Legends is like really high for me. I really like the story that we're telling there, but, which this is again, classic us disagreeing, is your lowest ranked from the vault track. It is like literally my favorite of those. And so here we are.
I know. I marked it low, but I did still like it.
Yeah. Yeah, you gave it a 6.5, which on our scale is halfway between enjoyable and good. Like, but yeah, I just think that that's funny. It's one of those things of like, sometimes we agree and it's the shade of how much do we agree? Kind of like This Love, kind of going into our discussion from earlier, where we both agree that that's our least favorite song on the album, but what that means is different. Whereas for this one, we just are radically opposite ends of the spectrum. And kind of similarly there, you have Say Don't Go as one of your top from the vaults, whereas for me, that is one of my lowest, but we're still relatively close numerically. It's just a difference where I'm at a 7.5 and you're at an 8.25. And so we're still relatively close there in terms of the difference, but I do think that that is interesting, to say the least.
We do agree on Now That We Don't Talk, though.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I like that one. It's been stuck in my head today. So.
Yeah, that one is super catchy. And that's one that I feel like for me is, while I would not say is my favorite from these, I do have Suburban Legends and Is It Over Now as higher than it. This is probably the one I'm most likely to go back and listen to. And so, just because it is so catchy. And so this is one that definitely would like land really high, because if I'm scrolling through these, I'm likely to click on that one and play that one. Just because of how catchy it is. So that's kind of our talk. Any overall thoughts on this album now that we have kind of chatted through all the songs, or anything you want to kind of talk a little bit more now that we've kind of talked through the whole thing?
Oh, I think I was surprised that my Taylor's version ranking was lower than the original, especially when like the bonus tracks got added in. I'm like, oh, this will raise my average, and then it didn't. Yeah.
I was surprised by that as well, just from like, just from the fact that like it's kind of hard for Taylor's versions to be lower, like just because we're adding more songs, and like unless those songs are bad, it is hard for them to pull down the average, which is kind of what had happened to us with Fearless Taylor's versions, or at least happened to me with Fearless Taylor's versions. I don't remember your exact rankings, but that was one that really brought down my average. And versus like Red and Speak Now, where it's like they're brought up because those songs are just generally really good. And so I do think it's interesting, it was interesting to see that when I went in to like pull our numbers, and pull things in. And so, and I don't think I said this, going into it, but, Shanine's ranking was, an 8.1 for 1989 Taylor's version, whereas she had an 8.29 for 1989. Then I had a 8.42 for 1989 and an 8.5 for Taylor's version. So we had some deviation there based on what it was, but not really anything that was like drastically different. We did, so a stat that I pulled in the other time, speaking of deviation, was how much did our scores differ. And so we have a 0.32 difference between my score and your score, which is by no means the highest, which was Folklore. It kind of puts it kind of towards the middle, or upper portion where we do have some. Interestingly enough, 1989 was the one that we agreed on the most. And so we now disagreed more than we did with just 1989. So, and then last thing from the stats I want to call out is we are tracking tens, and I did reference earlier that we now have the same number. You did have more than me on the initial by like one song. But so I gave tens again to Shake It Off. And now joins I Knew You Would as the songs that I gave tens to in the initial version as well as the TV. I gave Bad Blood a 10 and then Wonderland a 10. And then you added Blank Space and Wildest Dreams. And so let's see. And then last or follow up. We had this discussion last time because I believe when we did the rankings, we had gotten the announcement of 1989 Taylor's version as being the next one, but that does leave just Reputation and Debut as our remaining TVs. Where are you at? Which one do you think we're going next? I know there's theories floating around and stuff like that, but I don't believe there's anything confirmed. Saying there's theories floating around is like the biggest understatement in the Taylor Swift community fandom. But like, I know there are theories going around, but what are your thoughts? Reputation versus Debut, and what are you hoping to see from both of those albums?
I mean, yeah, you see it going around all the time. All she has left to take back is her name and her reputation. Yeah, I still think we're going to get Rep next and Debut last, just to do like a full circle moment, ending with where we started at. I don't know. I think Reputation has grown on me as an album. I didn't like it really the first time that I listened to it when it first came out, but now I've been like liking it more. So I'm excited for her to have that back, and also to see what vault tracks we'll get with that. Like that'll be
because
so
unless I missed them, there were no bonus tracks for Reputation.
No, I don't believe so. I think there's just the one version.
Yeah. So I'm curious to what that's going to mean, just because that gives her so much more to play with versus like, again, even though we had 25 total, we talked through the 21 that are on the main album. And that's a lot of songs. Like, I mean, it's not Red TV, which was 30 songs, including, the 10-minute All Too Well, which is basically 3 songs on its own. But I am curious, like, numerically, what that is going to mean for her. Reputation was 15 songs to begin with, and so she does have some room to play around there in terms of bringing things in. I agree with you in terms of I think we're getting Reputation next, and we're getting Taylor Swift, Taylor's version as our final TV. I'm really interested in what's going to happen with Reputation. Going through the rankings, Reputation was the first time there was a dip in my rankings. So up until that one, it had only climbed, and then Reputation was a significant drop from 1989 for me. And I remember that when it came out. Like I remember loving 1989, and obviously that persists till today. And then just kind of being very mid on Reputation, to the point that like I listened to 1989 in the car all the time when it came out. And I think I had only listened to Reputation once or twice, or 2 or 3 times probably. But like, It just, while there was like specific songs there that I really enjoyed, it just did not land with me the same way. And so I'm just very curious to what that is going to look like. Cause like, that's kind of the same way I felt about Speak Now. And like Speak Now TV is like one of my favorite albums. And so, I am just very curious to how that will land. And then I am curious for debut of what we're going to see with those bonus tracks, because I gotta say, those are some of my least favorite Taylor Swift songs are the debut bonus tracks of Invisible and a Perfectly Good Heart. So will that change? Maybe. We will see what that looks like in probably 100 something days. And so,
Right. It's gonna be interesting to see Taylor like go back to country,
mm-hmm.
like what
Yep.
that sound will sound like so many years later.
Mm-hmm.
And like what little baby Taylor vault songs are we gonna get?
Yeah. I hope that she just has like a collection of songs that she wrote at this time. And we get some of the like the most like 2007 possible, like references and all to stuff that like doesn't make sense now, but is like for people that was like also in high school at that time, like is just like so on the nose for like that experience. And so, very, very interested to what that could be. Especially from like our standpoint of the ranking, where Debut was our lowest ranked album, and like Reputation was my third lowest and your fourth lowest. So like as an album, they are both of those are very much on the bottom of our rankings. And so oh no, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing, just kidding.
Gonna say, I'm like, wait.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at yours versus the average. Sorry. You're much more in line with the average. And so Taylor Debut is my second lowest, whereas it's your lowest. And then Reputation is my sixth album, whereas it's your third. And so a third from the bottom for both of those. So, and so it is definitely closer to the halfway point for me, but is still in that lower half. And so I'm very interested to what we're going to get from this. With that, listeners, watchers, wherever you are, let us know, what is your Taylor Swift ranking? Let us know what songs are we completely wrong about, and it's crazy that we ranked them as low as we did. I hope y'all enjoyed us kind of getting to go through and talk through a bit more of the album, since we didn't have to go through 13 in one episode. I'm really excited that we could do that. But let us know. What did you think? What do you think of the From the Vault tracks, the bonus tracks that are brought in? And let us know where 1989 TV lands for you. With that, let's head into our outro and then our post show. As always, you can find us as 1geek411. You can check us out on Discord and shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. You can also find our Redbubble store, watch live on Twitch Monday nights at 6:45 Mountain Time, and find our videos over on YouTube. And then, of course, you can find us at our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittle.
I'm Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram and Threads.
Which means I need to update the tag for you. I'd meant to do that and I forgot. I also just got very worried that I forgot to switch it to you from Emma. But it has been on you, so we're good. It is the old one, but so I do need to update that. But at least it was on your name this whole time, and it was not on Emma. So with that, and until next time, it's been a great week.
Read a book.